Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Steve is off-site today, so he's at the school in Chicago. So now I don't know which one they're going to see, you or me. I don't know how
Probably depends on who's talking.
Oh, it depends on who's okay, good. You have to do that, Steve, or it automatically does it? Does it automatically do it? We don't know. We're just shaking our heads. So you might be seeing me the whole time, or you might be seeing both of us, but here we go. So the topic today is choose wisely, and you can go any direction with that. I mean, what are your choices like, and what are we working on today, and what are we focused on today? Sometimes we know we need to make a decision, but we just don't know if we've got the energy to do it. It might be an emotional decision, so we put it off. And then what I've always told Steve in all of our conversations, if we attack something when it's this big, it stays that big, and you can probably diffuse it pretty easily and squish it like an ant. But if you let the problem brew and brew and brew and brew, now you've got an emotional problem inside you and your business that's this big. And we've done it. I mean, and we don't encourage anyone to live like that because it's difficult, but especially in business, because we had an opportunity to be the leader and catch it when we first had our reaction. Now we've got it this big. So I don't know why I started off with that today. Maybe it's sitting on someone's heart and they're thinking, yep, I'm going to get it right now while it's this big. So.
Well, I think the important part about that is that we're largely where we're at today because of the choices that we've made. And so this idea of choose wisely, if we want a different outcome, then we have to be willing to do tough things sometimes and make different choices. For all intents and purposes, you're where you're at because of the choices you've made and your best thinking. So sometimes we need that outside idea just to spark what's possible and to spark something new, a new thought that leads to new choices.
Good. All right, so we're going to start off with one of my favorite quotes that I've used. It's quality is never an accident. It's always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and skillful execution. It represents the choice of many alternatives. Once again, the choice. And when you look at quality, when you're in a quality atmosphere or quality people or quality services, it's a lot of effort was put into that, and training and development and skillful execution. You know, what is the alternative here? I mean, what do we do if we don't do these things and think through and think about the quality side and how it's going to impact our guests and our business? I mean, it does. It represents a choice of many alternatives. And so when we're thinking choose wisely, we have to think of choosing wisely so it creates quality for us. And
Terry, it's also about understanding the difference between quality and quantity. I think so much of business, and maybe even so much of life, is about quantity. It's about gathering the most to us. It's about the biggest volume. It's about more traffic. It's about more dollar per guest. It's about quantity. But really, quality and qualitative decisions are completely different. And the companies that really survive are the companies that thrive and survive are the companies that have a qualitative approach on the way to getting quantity, on the way to building your volume. It happens as a byproduct of absolutely barricading around and protecting the quality of your company.
Well, I think about what you used to say when you would do the illustration of what's the difference between a lower price salon, maybe even a chain effort, and a high dollar ticket average salon. And used to say all the time, and why don't you talk about it because you say it better than me?
Well, the difference I think at the chain salon end, what they think about first is quantity. It's traffic. They build traffic, and later, as they've achieved critical mass, they train quality.
Mm-hmm.
They train quality from a strength standpoint because now they've got margins and they've got profits that they can reallocate toward building their quality. And again, I think back to when the chain or collection salons really started, all of the horror stories that existed and revolved around quality. It was perceived that an independent salon, a traditional salon, would be the ones that had the better quality, but yet, and I think back to the signs in people's windows that we fix X dollar haircuts. You don't see those signs today because a lot of the chains, they've addressed quality. They just did quantity first. And so when you get to the high end, independent salon, they don't ever get to quantity. They don't ever build traffic until they first have trained quality. They've got to have quality because they're at a higher price point on the, on the food chain. If you're charging more, your quality has to be there.
Got it. I like it. So every decision matters. Make good decisions. I think about your grown children, and that was something we would say to them all the time. In fact, I think the watch we purchased for Sarah, on the back, it was engraved with "Make good decisions." And every decision matters. And when you look at how that impacts your life, I mean, what decisions are open decisions right now for us? And I don't know. I've got some decisions to make right now on a couple of things I'm thinking about in business, and I know Steve's list is huge too. And sometimes we say, well, timing is everything. Okay, kind of an excuse, but it's true. You can also say, I'm doing fact finding on this, and I've got to do my due diligence and do my research. Sometimes we're just putting off making a good decision. So your staff, make no mistake, watches very closely the decisions you make and how you stand behind them and defend them. And when you're tempted to go and make a decision that's popular versus the right decision for your business, slow yourself down and really think through it. Did you want to say anything on that? Usually you nudge me here or something, so I can't see if you want to say something.
Well, I just think back to when we first started saying make good decisions to the kids. And it was at a time where I think there was a beer company making great ads, and it was Miller Golden Draft. And so it was MGD, and everything was MGD. And of course, make good decisions became MGD in our house. And we had to be sure that we differentiated between MGD, the beer,
MGD,
the decisions, making the decisions. So it was just a fun way to, that's where I went during that. And it really is. Making good decisions isn't always making easy decisions.
Or popular.
Good decisions are the toughest. They're just tough decisions.
So Steve turned me on to a video training clip, or an interview. Actually, it was an interview. So let's start this, because we're going to have some fun with this. I love this so much. Go ahead, honey.
All right. So for those of you that don't know, I mean, Terry and I get a lot from sports. We learn a lot about life and business from sports. And Dabo Swinney is the head coach, football coach at Clemson University. And they, this year, were the NCAA National Championship football team. They won an exciting game against Alabama. It was a rematch of the year before, where they had lost the year before. So this interview with him was really all about not the championship season, but about the 8 seasons that led up to that. And like many coaches, he started with this idea of how he breaks his seasons down into, each season is get ready, it's transformation, it's prime time, and then it's championship. And so in the season where it was get ready, one of the ways they got ready was to make video clips of the year before, and particularly the championship game that they lost. And they started with their best player, and they showed a video early on in the game of a missed snap between the center and the quarterback. So best player, the quarterback. And by no talent of the other team at all, here they started off with this missed snap and a fumble. And so what Dabo said, he showed that clip, and he showed several others like it that had nothing to do with how good Alabama was, had everything to do with kind of the self-destruct of Clemson and their ability to self-destruct. And he said, he coined this phrase, let's not lose to Clemson. Don't lose to Clemson. Don't lose to ourselves. Don't beat ourselves. And I think about that so much, because isn't that really honestly one of the things that we all face? Let's not lose to ourselves. Let's not lose sight of our own potential. Let's realize that brilliance takes repetition, it takes intention, it takes focus, it takes people being willing, a whole team being willing to go the extra mile, being willing to put in extra, that little bit. It's the little things. At that point that you get to any championship, or at that point that you are competing at the top level of any industry, of any portion of an industry, of any town or region, you're doing a lot of the big stuff. You got the big stuff in place. You're making it happen. In the salon, you're making it happen. You're cutting hair well. You're coloring hair well. You're working with texture well. You're doing certain things really, really well. But what's going to set you apart is, are you consistent? Number one, are you consistently doing it well? And number two, what are all the little things that are going to make the big difference? Because if everybody's doing the big stuff right, your time in the spotlight can be limited because other people get the big stuff right too. But it's all the little things. When do you lose to yourself? You lose to yourself when the guest arrives before you do.
Or you lose yourself during, you don't do a consultation. You lose.
Or rush through it, yeah.
Or rush through, or you don't do a great shampoo, or you didn't communicate with, these are that thing, or you didn't communicate with your shampoo assistant. These are all things that you could have taken care of. You lost yourself when you made those decisions, or you didn't reschedule. You didn't talk about a professional recommendation. You didn't talk about asking for referrals. You didn't stay focused on the guest the entire service. You rushed through. You had inappropriate conversations. That's all losing to Clemson. You lost yourself in that situation, right?
And the other thing is if you're focused too much on who you are versus what you can become. If your focus is on everything you've done to get to where you're at today, instead of what's the end game, what's really ahead of us, what is it that we really need to get accomplished. Just because you were good yesterday doesn't mean you're automatically going to be good today. Just because you were good with one guest doesn't mean you're going to be great with the next guest. Only through seeing the next guest. Being able, in sports they talk all the time about being able to see what's next, see the next play, see the next completed pass, see the next rebound, be able to see the next run back, whatever the case may be. And how do we do that in our industry? Do we see the next guest? Do we see the next opportunity to upgrade a ticket, to make the right recommendation, to really hear the guest when they're asking for how they'd like to be served?
Well, I look at other things that owners are talking about. They're still fighting the dress code and people looking professional. They're still fighting the issue of coming to work with your hair and makeup done. They're still fighting the issue of the phone. And all those are equivalent to missing a snap. I mean, business is hard enough when you're trying to do it all right and the guests can resist us. But we are setting us up. Thank you, Steve. We're setting ourselves up for that difficulty, and it's not necessary. It just makes the travel of success that much more difficult. Mm-hmm. Do the next one, because I love that too.
Well, what was interesting is these were two phrases by two championship coaches. This next one, try not to suck, was the mantra of Joe Madden of the Chicago Cubs. He opened spring training and gave everyone T-shirts. Everyone on his team.
Did you know that?
This T-shirt, "Try Not to Suck." And when they got to the championship, when it came postseason time, he put a little carrot top on the "Try Not to Suck," and he added "in October." "Try not to suck in October." And all that was the transition between, okay, we didn't suck in the regular season. We did that part, but now let's try not to suck in October. Because last year we made it to October and we didn't win the World Series. This year we want to win the World Series. And the "try not to suck" was all based around the fact that he believed, and it certainly proved out, the Chicago Cubs were a very good team. And if they didn't beat themselves, they'd win the World Series.
So we've got salons out there that are great salons.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got to make sure they try not to suck, which that's a funny word for me to say. And they can't lose to Clemson. And they have to fight the good fight, right? So another thing that the coach was talking about is doing common things in an uncommon way. I mean, football's not invented the last 5 years or the last 8 years. But he had to realize we're going to do common things in an uncommon way. And we are going to really understand and break down what the common things are and how we can get creative and really work on making what's common uncommon. So they're almost going to shock the defense on the other team or shock the offense, or because they're not going to be expecting it, because they might be thinking common and we're thinking uncommon in our execution. So what are some of the common things that can be done in an uncommon way in the salon industry? Of course, the wash house has been a huge thing that was common for years. And now look what's happened with enclosed wash houses, wash house menus. The guests, everyone knew it was the guest's favorite part, but we decided to really take that somewhere. I mean, people have been known now. They're branding their businesses. And one of the ways they're doing that is with a wash house, exposing the color bar, bringing that out. And both things came from the Robert Croming Salon. He is known for doing and taking common things and making and putting them in place in an uncommon way. I love that. And all we do is every conversation we talk about normal common dialogue, and then how can we say it differently? Change that dialogue up. What do you want to say? Because I can see you smirking.
I just think about this in so many ways. There was a time when just the thought of having a wash house or a lather lounge was uncommon. And so I watched our profession that went out and built wash houses. They built physical structures. And so a wash house conceptually became now somewhat common. But there are salons and there are salon groups that address the wash house in uncommon ways. For everyone that's listening, maybe who has a wash house, do you really go about it in an uncommon way? Do you really have, or do you celebrate a wash house menu? And if you celebrate it, maybe you have it, how many of those wash house services are you really selling?
Well, the dialogue that goes along with it. I mean, shampoos were actually done in silence. I don't know if there was much dialogue at the shampoo bowl. Now there needs to be specific dialogue back there to talk about treatments and other things. So
I'll give you a real life example. In our schools, we built beautiful wash houses. And every single time that I'm in our Lombard school and I walk by, now think of the essence of a wash house. It's to create a different atmosphere than what happens in the rest of the salon. It's to create a more quiet time. It's to create a different atmosphere and environment. It's to have different lighting and different sound. And then, of course, to have an extraordinary service where the touch and the procedure is right. Every single time that I walk by our wash house, which again, boatload of money was put into it,
Are the doors open?
A certain way. The doors are open.
Yeah.
The lights are up completely. So it's no longer that soft lighting that says you're walking in. This is pamper yourself. This is quiet zone. This is get away from the frenetic pace of life and of what happens in the rest of the school. This is special here. All of that is out the window when people just put the lights up, leave the door open. The music from the clinic classroom is pouring into the wash house. It just defeats it. So you can, as an owner, you can spend the money, you can do the right thing, you can have it physically beautiful. But, again, try not to suck. Well, sometimes we suck. We suck in our implementation. We suck because it's not as important to everybody as maybe it could or should be. Maybe it's that as a leader, I'm closing the door, I'm shutting down the lights, hoping that example will make a point instead of going to the next step and saying something.
Or I'm calling a timeout.
This is how we do it here.
Absolutely.
Like that, like this. And so I know that happens in businesses because it happens in ours. And I know that happens in your businesses as well. So what are the things that you set up in your salon to be uncommon? And when is the last time you inspected? And when is the last time you defended why you did it? And how important it is that it be protected and celebrated by all on your team.
Good. So now we're going to talk about John Wooden, because I love him. I love what he stands for. He was a great coach. So talk about this too. You're being focused today there, buddy. Go.
All right. So John Wooden, one of the most successful coaches of all time, but also considered just to be one of the, a prince among men. His memorial was done inside a 20,000 seat basketball arena, because that's how many people's lives he touched who wanted to be part of his the celebration of his life. And what was that? That was the fact that for a decade he was, the year after year after year, every year for a decade, he won the national basketball championship for the NCAA. And he was, again, kind of second to none. And what this slide says is that he had 8 plays. He was very simple in his approach. He had 8 plays. At the same time, right after that, Red Auerbach, who was, again, a famous coach for the Boston Celtics, he had 7 plays that the Celtics ran, but they ran them over and over and over again. The UCLA Bruins ran these 8 plays over and over and over and over again. Everybody knew it was coming.
And they perfected it.
Yeah, they perfected it. They couldn't stop it. They didn't make it overcomplicated. They made it very simple. I think back again to the story of Vince Lombardi, who started the first meeting of every single football season. Here's people that played Pop Warner football, they played high school football, they played college football, they got drafted in the NFL. Many of them played multiple NFL seasons. And Vince Lombardi held up a football at the beginning of practice, and he said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Now, how important do you think
the fundamentals are? Yeah.
Fundamentals were to him?
Yep.
How important were they to John Wooden? How important were they to Red Auerbach? How important are they to you? How important are they to me or to Terry? What are the fundamentals? What are, if our business was a handful of plays, what are those plays? What are our plays? You can see on the slide here, the greeting and the professional escort and the tour. Let's try not to suck. How do we do with that? It's still way too common in salons that a greeting is, "Hey." Is "hey" a professional greeting? But it happens. And it happens, and we're all in the name of being so busy and so much to do that we don't have time to ensure. Now, everything that we're talking about needs to be corrected and done with love. If it's done with, with shame on you, I'm going to kick your bucket, and you're going to do it my way or the highway, that's only going to go so far. You can only motivate people through fear for so long. The reality is we've got to do that with love and care, that we want to show people, we want to help people be the best they can truly be, and be able to achieve their dreams and their goals and that they really care about in their career. And in order to do that, we've got to have that consistency. We've got to have the consistency in the greeting and our escort and our tour, etc. And all of these things.
This makes a great meeting, because when you look at 8 plays, how many times do you think they ran those 8 plays? In every practice, every game, every practice. I mean, he got it down to where you're not going to stop us because we're going to know it so well. Other people can know it, but they don't have the muscle memory. They don't have the footwork. They don't have everything. They haven't done it. You're not going to compete with someone that's ran that play 1,000 times when you're just trying to defend it for the first time. You're not going to do that. So how much time and how often are we really spending on these 8? I mean, most of our work and most of our focus, our training is done on the technical service, the styling, and the finishing. And most of it, even there, you break that down, most of that is in the technical service, whether it's color application or grooming and cutting. So how much time are we spending on training and develop our people to master these 8 plays the way you want them run in yours? We could call this offense, we could call it defense, whatever we want. But how much time are we spending on these 8 plays to develop our team?
And what's our evaluation of it? Because again, at some point you're going to get back to the misnomer that practice makes perfect, and practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Only perfect practice makes perfect. So how much time are we talking about the difference between just practice and the right kind of practice?
With coaching.
Yes.
With coaching, because these 1,000 times they ran that play was with someone watching them and correcting what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he didn't see something he liked, he didn't say, okay, and let him run it again. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. He did it. Oh, excuse me. And ran those plays over and over again so he could coach them to perfection. So you're not just practicing them, you're coaching them.
Yes.
Another thing that I thought was wonderful in this is he said we have to serve their heart versus their talent. And this was the Clemson coach, Dabo. Am I saying that right?
Dabo. Doba.
Sorry, Dabo. Toba. Oh my God, that's funny. So I have to tell you a quick story. So there was someone at the school, because I screw names up so much. There was someone in the school network that she's one of the first employees of the school and has a wonderful reputation. And when I met her, I heard about her, Tova. And so, of course, I said, hi, Tivo, because I screw up every name. Why is that? I think that's an illness of some sort. Anyway, so one of the things that Dabo says is if a coach plays someone on a Saturday that didn't go to class all week, he is serving their talent versus serving their heart. And I really believe that we do that in the salon business, and I believe that we do that in business when we have a great employee. But unless we hold them accountable for doing all the things that they need to do, we're serving their talent versus serving their heart. He's saying, if you're going to play here, you're going to go to class, you are going to become a better man, you are going to do these things, because this will serve your heart the rest of your life. Football's not going to serve your heart the rest of your life.
Well, and part of that was also thinking about seeing these players. I mean, people that play in college, the age group. It's anywhere from 18 to 22, 23 years old.
Well, look what we usually bring on our teams in salons.
Sure. And he said, imagine seeing these people. He said to his whole team, his whole staff that was involved with the day-to-day, He said, I want you to look at these people and see them as 35-year-olds. Imagine they're 35 years old. They are obviously out of school. They're on with the rest of their lives. They have families, they have children, they have full-time jobs. And how do you want them to look back? His premise was that at that age, when you look back on the people that were in your life at those ages, you knew who was really about serving you from their heart. You knew people who really cared about you and who were genuine. And you knew the people that weren't. You knew the people that maybe just served the talent. Maybe it was just the best. And I'm going to use the talent you have. He said, I want those people at 35 to want to come up and give me a big old hug around the neck. And isn't that true? I mean, isn't that really true? At the end of the day, do we want genuine relationships? Do we want them genuinely to know that we cared? That's really the key. So that's what I think is important here. The idea, sometimes you might think as a leader, this is a business, therefore they joined me, and therefore I'm just here to put their talent in the best chance to win.
Well, and you know what's an unfair comparison in this is boy, I wish we had the time to spend with our teams, put them in a hotel, put them in a prac, and just work on them for how many months, or in conditioning all year long. And I would love to have that kind of brain power and practice level. The reality is we don't have that. We are expected to be in business and try to accomplish both while the business is running. I'm envious of the amount of time they get to develop their talent and spend time with their people, because it's not easy to slow the world down and slow the business down to accomplish that. And they've got how many games they have to play in the season, and we've got how many days that we're performing what we have to, 200 days a year or something. And it's hard. That part is hard. And I think that we have to find a way. That's why having a staff schedule, or a salon schedule that allows us to spend time with our people, connect with them, have training and development time. If the salon's open so much, you're going to have a hard time connecting to the heart. Mm-hmm. Just a point to make on that. So, I don't know what happened here on this slide, but this kind of goes back to cause versus dollar. You know, I put this in here because I thought that it goes back to talent versus heart. This is another way to say it, cause versus dollar. I mean, are we in business for to make money, or are we in the business to make a difference and be the best salons in our community? And if so, all of our decision making, choosing wisely, has to support the cause, what we're trying to accomplish. And the dollar is a byproduct of us doing that properly and correctly to wow the community and our guests. So that's what I put that on there for. All right. So let's do a quick evaluation of things we're working on. And I think that if you look at the systems and your service evaluation, your people evaluation, what are the pros and what are the cons right now? And spend time alone and work on this. What things have to be enhanced. We've talked about that in many other e-learnings, but these are the pros and cons of the services we have in place. What are the pros to it and what are the cons to it? Meaning, one of the things I would think about is we might have this service, but we only do 3 of them a month. That's a con. So we've got to figure out, is it the right service for us because we like it? I mean, a great example is we have all different kinds of treatments. People say, we have treatments. But when we look at their evaluations of the amount of treatments that are being done is very small. Now, either people are doing them and not charging for them, or you really haven't made enough noise about treatment. So that's what I mean about talking about the pros and cons of things. People evaluation, that's pretty self-explanatory. The systems, I think of primarily probably looking at our software. what are the pros of it? Usually it's a glorified POS, right?
It's a glorified cash register.
Okay. Or point of sale. And then the cons are, I don't know how to use it. I don't have time to use it. I don't have enough people helping me with it. I don't have contact with the company itself, the support team. I'm not a household name there. So.
Can I tell you something that happened to me just this past weekend? I was with another business owner and wanted to show something to them. And there was a moment where I pulled up company software on my computer. And this owner looked and said, "Oh my God, you can actually run your own company's software?" Said, "You're way ahead of me just by that." And I thought, how often does that happen?
Yes.
How often does that really happen? That there's things that we're relying on as a business that we as ownership don't get our hands in. And so, it turned into a really great conversation because this owner had access to many of the same things that we do, but because she was disengaged from it, because she herself wasn't involved in it, the system hadn't evolved into what it could be for her. And it was just a real moment of truth, I think, for her as a business person, and reaffirming for me as well to say, you know what, it is important that we get this message out there again and again and again and again. If you've got Millennium or Shortcuts or whatever your software is, Salon Biz, MindBody, whatever it is, as a leader, you need to know it. You need to know what your staff is using, and that it reflects the steps of the service that you want your guest to receive.
Yeah.
So, hope that helps.
What's going on there? Everything all right?
Yeah, this is every few minute thing here in Chicago. Welcome to Chicago.
So the little extras, a football team, if the coach is talking to them and says, you know what, make sure you get enough sleep. I need more extras in your commitment, your belief, attention to detail. I'm looking for you to study more because schooling is really important while you're here playing football. Looking at the disciplines, the fundamentals, and the mindset. What are the extras that you're asking from your team right now? You're asking for that little extra. So what are they? And that's another great staff meeting. Another thing that is show up words. What can we expect you to show up as? And maybe you call it 2017.5, the rest of the year, but starting in July going through, what are the show up words? Maybe there's 3 show up words you're going to show up as a team member, and you hold them as a leader accountable to that. But he's asking for the little extra. What's the little extra you're asking for? And sometimes a little extra that we have staff meetings on is sanitation effort. He told a great story that I just loved. He said, when we go to a movie theater, he said, number one, no one has to clean up after these big football guys who eat a lot of popcorn. Not only do we clean it, we bring a blower in so we can get all the popcorn out of there. And when we leave, it's going to look better than it did when we got there. That's the kind of things our team is known as. And when we're in a hotel, we teach them how to carry themselves because they've never done this before in many cases. And he says, that's the difference. We're making men out of these boys and teaching them how to do things the right way.
Well, it was also part of his comment about doing common things in an uncommon way.
Yeah.
Common thing is to go to a movie. To clean up after yourself and have a blower and blow out all of this clean up, it is crazy. And they also told a story, the person interviewing him, John Gordon, told a story about the people at the hotel.
Yeah.
When they were at the national championship. and how impressed that the hotel staff was of this team. And they said they've never had a team at any level that carried themselves in the manner that this team carried itself, and by a long shot. And so would that happen? I mean, when you and your team, or when we and our team are around, we're outside of our own four walls of our business.
What's our reputation?
What is our reputation? Would anybody say that about us? Never seen a salon group like that before. Never seen anybody by a long shot carry themselves that way. The other thing that came from this, because it just shows up as a word here, and that's belief or believe. I love the way that Dabo talked about believe at a team level as an individual. And why I bring that up is he said, you know, I personally think that every team that comes together, they want to win. They want to win. But what we had to do as a team was we had to absolutely believe internally that we could win. There's a difference in just wanting to win and believing you can. And where are we at with our teams right now? I certainly know where our businesses are. When I finish here, I'm going to be in front of our entire school at 11:30 today, and I'm going to have an awful lot to say to all of them about recrafting some of these things that are so critically important to really developing people in the future. And do your teams believe?
Well, and then how do we protect these beliefs? What do our daily disciplines have to be to protect our beliefs? And that's key too, right? I mean, it's daily disciplines. I don't think he has to ask them to do the disciplines. I think they know it's expected of them that they're going to believe to win.
Well, and he talked about the pain of discipline and the pain of regret.
That's the next slide. Yes.
Cool. All right, here we go.
So it's the proof of discipline is, oh my gosh, look what we're accomplishing here, versus the pain of regret. We lost again, we lost again, we lost again, or we don't have traffic, or people aren't rescheduling.
Or worse, we were so close. I mean, think of it in that context. They made it to the championship game and lost. So they made it further than every other team in college football, then won, except for one. And they still had the pain and regret at the other side. I'm not saying, we can paint this horrible scenario of someone who's clearly failing, but there's businesses, many of our businesses that are succeeding in many, many things, but we still have that pain and regret because it has to go back to, what did we want to accomplish? Where did we think we could go? And did we come up short of what we thought we could do? And how do we make sure that, again, I guess I'm having trouble explaining this the way he did, but here's the thing. He said in college football, you're guaranteed 12 games. After that, you earn it. And he said, this season has a beginning. Today is the beginning of this season. It will have an end. No doubt, it'll have an end. But will it end with the pain and regret? Will it end with no regrets? So think of that, whether it be a day, whether it be a week, whether it be a month, whether it be a quarter, whether it be a year. This year will end. This month will end. This week will end. Will there be pain of regret because it didn't go exactly as we thought it could? And then how invested were we? The things that we're least invested in are the easiest to give up. The things that we're most invested in, personally, professionally, are the most difficult things to give up. If you're really, really invested, you're going to feel that pain and regret, And it won't just be, that's okay. But here comes the next week. Let's go get them, Tiger. It's not the way it works. They're absolutely invested in and believing in that ability to win, that ability to be successful.
So when we look at the it factor and start judging your business this way, it'll kind of tell you where should you make your decisions. And when you meet someone or enter a business, you can either smell it or the lack of it. What are they missing? You can either smell success and that they've got their disciplines and their structure in place, or the lack of it. And then you've got two choices: enhance what's there or change. And just think about that and digest that a little bit. Another thing I would recommend is you're going to have a conversation with the team member and coach them. You could use some of this dialogue in here. Watch this over and over again and see what you could use. I mean, really think about the business cycle. It's you give birth to the business, then you grow it, then you kind of plateau, then you decline in depth. And every business has this kind of cycle. And the one we want to focus on today, of course, is the growth one. We want to focus on growing over and over again. And the growth part is not always the easiest, because it takes for us to have the courage to make changes and decisions, different decisions as we grow. We're not the same person we were when we started the business. And you can have things happen to you that create a decline, but you can jump back up. You can jump back up to the growth area. But it's going to take reinvention and focus. Steve, are you there, or did we lose you? Did we lose him? So the attitude or belief, let's talk about that. It can be done versus it can't be done. And the attitude of belief doesn't have an attitude of excuses. And when you look at that every day, I mean, when someone even comes to me and says, what's the problem? We delivered that. Well, that's not how we wanted the customer to perceive our business. So what are the distractions in place that jeopardize the belief? Sometimes it's just because we've always done it that way. Not that we recreate or we need to do something different. So what are your distractions right now that jeopardize the belief? And I think that's a great question. That might even be a great message to have as a team meeting. What's in the way for us right now? And then accountability is our last one, which accountability is a combination of leadership and love. Leadership is discipline. Leadership is structure. But as long as they know your intentions are to do it from the heart and make them better, I think that they understand that and they embrace that. I mean, structure is not a bad thing. We all create structure with our children, and they know we also love them. But it's also hard to be a parent. Well, it's also hard to be a business leader and a coach to develop talent. So, is he coming back? Do we know? Can we text him or something? Do we lose him forever? Where'd you go? Are you gone?
I'll try texting.
Steve's going to try texting him. Do we have any questions or comments on this? I guess I go back to that other one again. What are the excuses? And what are the distractions right now? I always give a lot of credit to a coach that has to coach people, and usually coach people that have been the best on their team their whole life. Wow. How willing do they have to be to just take all those compliments or take all that ego that's been created by the communities that they lived in and the newspapers that wrote about them and the high schools that paid tribute to them and the trophies and the all conference. And now they've got to be able to be in front of a coach that says, now, everything that you've become got you here. Now, this is how I want it done here. I admire that. I admire that huge, because that's big. Where'd you go? Were you gone that whole time? Hi.
Back.
Where'd you go?
My computer shut off.
Well, we're on our last two slides, but we're talking about the attitude of belief that it can be done versus can't be done. Mm-hmm. And then an attitude of belief versus an attitude of excuses, the yeah buts. And then what are the distractions in place that are jeopardizing the belief right now? And there's so many excuses. We can find them right now. Let's just start layering them in every salon we've been to. And they're good salons, but they're stuck in the trap of excuses. And
no doubt. And
we get there too. I mean, you and I had a conversation last night, and I said, done talking about this, right? And you can live in that moment and get stuck there.
Well, here's the thing, you know, and again, I think back to something that was said in that, the Dabo said, you know, you can't let your defeats define you. Your failures can't define you. They need to develop you. And that's an interesting attitude just in its own right. Do your failures, do the things that are difficult, does that define who you are? Does that define you as a leader or your business as a business? Or does it develop you to rise above that, develop you to lead better, to think differently, to go about it in a different way, to bring about a different result? It develops you. But for some people, it stops them.
Yeah, it does. And why can't I do a wash house menu? Why can't I do a processing menu? Why can't we? And I've heard the reasons why. Owners have been very clear, and then they get stuck in an attitude of excuses. But we've got to be able to change that and catch ourselves when we are even delivering an excuse ourselves as a leader. Steve, where are we at on time?
So to me, I would think, I would create this little 2-word mantra: define or develop, define or develop, define or develop. Good.
So any questions or anything, you can enter them. Do you know how to do that? Brian, our normal producer, our regular producer, had a baby last week, a baby girl, Tess. And so he's not here today, and Steve Ormans is our executive producer today. So I just am saying, are there any questions or anything? We've got about 3 minutes. No one's saying anything. It's so quiet.
Questions are always the hardest part.
It is, because, and I'm sure this has created a lot of thought. You know what? You could even do an attitude of distractions in place that jeopardize belief. Those could be great one-on-one things too, right? Not just even as a team, but you could have one-on-one. Sometimes we go, we don't know what to talk about. This is a great slide to talk about. I'm using it on Thursday in our directors meeting because I like it so much. You know, what are our excuses? And sometimes our number one excuse people could say is, oh, money. We don't have the money to do that. We've got all these ideas, but we don't have the money. Okay, so that's it. That's one, fair. Now let's go on to another one. And then what do we do? Because we're not going to change the excuse if we're stuck there. Are you ready to bid farewell?
I think so.
What time is it? Yep, it's time for us to go. We will see you next month. I usually know the topic in front of me, but I don't today. But we're looking forward to. We are excited about the next month. We had a great event yesterday, and we've got companies that are doing some wonderful things. And so being a part of those wonderful things and having you as our guests, we're very blessed.
Thanks, everybody. Know that leadership always starts with the heart, starts with your ability to love and care for the people that are around you. We hope that you have an incredible month of loving and caring, and maybe look at this thing called business a little bit differently because of the time we spent today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.